So I'm Reverend Christina Garza, and I am here today to give you a message and close out the October series that we had. And that's about really being, you are born to change the world. So that song is a reminder that though we be small, though we be whoever we are, though whatever we come to this service here with today, whether we come with a history of addiction or a history of fear or a history of abuse or a history of health challenges, wherever we come to this service here today, we have the power of the living Christ through us, in us, around us that we have access to at any point in time. And Reverend Kurt, you can go and see on YouTube the messages that he gave this month that really talk more about, how we understand ourselves as being change agents, spiritual change agents. We don't come from spiritual traditions oftentimes that tell us that, right? We're told we're sinners, that we're blasphemous, that we're wrong, that whatever. And so for many of us, it is a radical message to believe that we are anointed, that all of us are anointed, no matter who we are, what we do, what we've done, or what we haven't done. And so we embrace that idea here in Unity. But, we are in really challenging times. And I know that. I'm not unaware of that. And it's important that we all connect, even as spiritual leaders, that we connect to what's really happening out there and what folks are struggling with. And, it is a very divided time in our nation and in our world. And so that makes us then feel like, how can we be change agents? What am I to do when I feel so hopeless? Right? Anybody feel that way? Anybody feel that way? I joked in my promo video for the service today that, this message and this title, and this kind of place that we're all in reminded me of a rap song. I was born in the south side of Chicago, so hip hop and rap is in my blood. And so, I kept thinking about this song from Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, called The Message from 1982. And, I wasn't going to rap, but everybody's like, we need a rapping minister. So, why not? We're all having fun. Unity loves everything, right? So for those of you who don't know the song, you can check it out on YouTube. Somebody can even drop it in the chat. But it kind of goes, like this, don't push me 'cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Ha 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 ha. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Anybody know that song? I'm sure some of you might. But that's how we feel, right? It's a jungle. How can I not keep from going under? But when we feel that way, oftentimes, then we're coming into this space of lack and of fear, whether we know it or not. And then that breeds something oftentimes called spiritual arrogance. So, what is that? It's really this idea of you thinking like you're a bag of chips and all that, or if you're vegetarian, the kale chips and all that, um, thinking that you have come to the light. For those of us who are in unity or new thought or have some kind of spiritual religious background, that we've practiced, we've studied, we've prayed, we've meditated, and so we're coming to this with a higher consciousness. But then it also breeds something where we can be prideful about it. We can be arrogant in the way that we deliver that. And it becomes really important for us to really pay attention to it. In traditional Christianity, pride is considered one of the seven deadly sins. In unity, of course, we don't believe in sin. We don't believe in this, damnation, eternal damnation, or the idea that people are tainted or wrong or bad. Sin for us is just falling off the mark. It's just not being in total alignment with God, with wholeness, with health. That's really what it means to us. So it is important to focus on that and think about it sometimes, like what does this mean to be spiritual arrogant? How am I potentially being prideful in my own spirituality? And it creeps in whether we realize it or not. It's this really damaging, insidious kind of overtone, energetic overtone that we have to really be cognizant of and really watch for, where we become arrogant about our spiritual beliefs. I remember the first time that I witnessed that. I was about 9 or 10 years old. And my grandmother was very spiritual, very religious, Catholic. And she was also very open, though, to other people's interpretations. And so one day there was a knock at the door, and she looked out the window, as did my mother, and they saw that it was the Jehovah Witnesses, right? We've all been in that place, right? Where God bless them, right? They're at the door knocking, wanting to come in and talking about Jesus, talking about God, right? Many of us don't let them in. But my grandmother decided she was gonna let them in. So she goes to open the door, and my mother said, "That's a mistake. Don't do it." And she says, "No, they're here to talk about God. That's what I'm about." She lets them in. She even offered them coffee. They start chatting. And my grandmother had a picture of the Virgin Mary on the wall, as well as the Virgen de Guadalupe, which is a patron saint of Mexico. So shortly after they sat down and sipped their coffee, one of them said to her, I don't understand why you have those images on your wall. They are blasphemous. God is this an idol? It's idolatry. There's only Jesus. And so I always remember that look on her face. It was that slow turn when you knew, boy, something big was about to happen. And she just said to them really calmly, I'm going to ask you, do you have a picture of your mother on your house? And they said, yeah, we do. And she said, how would you feel if somebody walked into your house and said you shouldn't have that? Either they're ugly or they're inappropriate. How would you feel? And they said, well, God, that'd be horrible. She said, exactly. If this is Jesus's mother, if this is the divine mother, if this is an energetic power, how do you think this looks, bodes well for your spirituality? And so she proceeded to then take their coffee away and their pan dulce, their Mexican sweetbread, and usher them out the door. Needless to say, they never knocked on our door again. But this was my first kind of brush with this idea that we can take our truths and really take it to the hilt where then we are alienating other people. We see that often in many Christian denominations, right? Where, okay, you can't be of God if you're gay. You can't be of God if you are a divorcee. You can't be of God. The list goes on and on. But, this happens in our own movement too, in New Thought and Unity, whether we think about it or not. I'm sure many of you, I've been here about 17 years in Unity. Some people have been here many, many more years. And so you may have experience with that. But, a lot of messaging oftentimes that I've here with in my history here are that, unity is to be done the right way. Now, what is the right way to do unity? I've heard so many folks talk about chastise people in unity who use crystals or work with angels or and do other kinds of things, saying that's not really, pure unity, or that have crosses in their church. Again, that's not unity. I remember even people talking about the Bible. If you didn't use the Bible in unity, you were not doing unity. If you did use the Bible too much in unity, you weren't doing unity. It's sort of no matter where you went, there was always this judgment about what was the right way. Even when I was in ministerial school, I remember chuckling when we would have to do our practice runs for sermons, and they would tell us, you have to be platform ready and you have to have platform attire. And I would say, well, what does that mean? Like, some of the biggest names in Unity and really known ministers, even here from Unity Chicago for many, many years, Mike McToyne was known for wearing Hawaiian shirts and shorts on the platform. Like, is that platform ready? I don't know. Is it? But the question then becomes, what does it mean for us to embody this spirit and embody in a way that is liberatory, that is inclusive, that is opening, and that is changing, and that can be changed? So that is the question that we're in here today. And I've learned my lessons too. I'm not saying I walk on water, because I've been there too. I've been there lately, quite honestly, as I move into this space of wanting to do church a different way, and being with this team here at Unity North Shore and others around, wanting to explore how to move church to a different level. But sometimes in, your eagerness, in your zealotry, it can also become spiritual arrogance by not understanding that people need a beat. People are clinging on for dear lives for many different reasons. People are in fear and people are scared of change. So sometimes those ways creep in, whether you realize it or not. Even though your heart is in the right place, sometimes your actions don't always align with that. So you have to be careful. We have to be careful about how we move forward and how we open up this spiritual space. Jesus's ministry was all about uncovering these paradoxes, and he was definitely about uncovering this idea of spiritual arrogance. And I love the fact that he always used the tax collector as kind of like this symbol of how we could understand this idea of spiritual pride. So for those of you who don't know, the tax collector in Roman times was like Satan incarnate, okay? He was a person, and it was definitely a he was a person that worked for the Roman Empire. And so it was usually somebody that was of Jewish descent. It was of the people who was then hired by the Romans, who at that time were the oppressors. They were the oppressors of the people at that time, and weren't necessarily treating folks very well. And so they were the agents of the oppressor, essentially. So people hated them. And they were rich, and they made themselves rich off of taking people's money, oftentimes money that others didn't have. So they were not regarded very well in this time. But yet Jesus often talked about them as being spiritual beings, and as a matter of fact, talked about them as being people that could be embraced as some of on the higher echelons of understanding relationship to God or to spirit. So I want to talk a little bit about one particular passage that I just absolutely love. And it's out of Luke. So it's the Gospel of Luke, and it's in chapter 18, starting at verse 9. And it's the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. And it goes like this. He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. So he's saying this in an audience of people who were of high spiritual kind of value, of high spiritual standard, and trusted that they were righteous. And so Jesus is speaking here. He says, two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. Now, the Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying. Now, just so you know, the Pharisee is a high religious leader. So the Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus: God, I thank you. I'm not like those other people. Ooh, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this here tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give a tenth of my income. Oh, but the tax collector, oh boy, standing there far off, he wouldn't even look up to heaven. He was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me. I am a sinner. Jesus says, I tell you, this man went down to his home justified rather than the other. For all you who exalt themselves will be humbled, but all you who humble themselves will be exalted. What do we take from that? It's a person that is beyond being redeemed, and that we have to be careful that we are not judging others and then judging ourselves, that we're not judging others for maybe judging us and then we turn around and judge themselves, right? So we have to really be careful that we're not in those kinds of spaces where we're doing that. And it's happening quite a bit, you all, right? I mean, I'm on social media. I talk in conversations. I do prayers with people. So I hear all the anxiety and all the frustration and all the fear that's coming through, particularly around this election. And so I ask people to really think about how the ego is so sneaky. The ego can sneak in ways where we start to use words and thoughts and even actions that might be against others. And yes, we don't always agree with everyone. We don't. But we also have to provide a spiritual space where we can actually move and navigate, where we can be the voice of compassion, where we can be the voice of humility, where we can be the voice of openness, and we can be the voice of proactive, positive, practical change. So, how do we do that? No, I think if we think about it, first and foremost, when we engage in this kind of back and forth and arguing and anger and hurt, again, all of these emotions are normal. They're not wrong. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel them or that I don't feel them, but we have to move into a space where we transform them, that we don't leave it there, and that we don't get ourselves into this spiritual conundrum where we're actually going against principle. We're actually going against God principle and truth principle when we stay in that space and we don't transform it. So, first of all, it's a waste of your time and energy when you're going back and forth in these feelings, because they're not necessarily going to get you to a higher level. And it doesn't help because, secondly, it is keeping us in a place that inhibits spiritual growth, not just for ourselves, but for other people as well. If we constantly think, that political leader is the devil incarnate, that political leader is evil, that political leader, that political party does this or that, we're really not opening up a space for change. And I invite everyone to think about, instead of maybe hurling an insult or a fear or a worry that a particular political party will be coming into office, maybe we should just turn around and pray. Open up the space. Pray not just with yourselves, but pray with others. Again, not saying that people don't have a right to go and do something and to go out and vote for who you want to vote for. But I'm inviting everyone to just stay open, to stay heart centered, and to believe that we are in the midst of the divine at every moment in time, that we are cared for, that we are part of this wonderful divine order. And so, no matter what happens, we will be okay. We have the spiritual tools within us to be okay. And so, maybe you pray at that time and see that person transforming. We love a good hero story, from evil to good, right? Quote unquote, evil to good. All of our cartoons and movies, Black Panther and all this, right? Is the person that was in error, that was this quote unquote sinner, then comes to the light. But it's usually someone who's keeping that light open for them, keeping that door open for them to be able to walk through. So, as we think about this, I want to just offer two things for us as we move into these final days, right? And whatever is beyond. For us to think about, the first thing, that we just have no right to judge others. That doesn't mean we can't disagree with them. That doesn't mean that we can't have a vision of a different future. But it means that we are not supposed to judge others, no matter what they do or say. And that's hard. That is really hard for us to grapple. But if we really distill down spiritual principle and spiritual truth, if we really distill down Jesus's message, that is what we're being told. Judge ye not, lest ye be judged. Take the log out of your own eye and stop looking at the splinter in someone else's. Again, these are hard things for us to kind of turn around as a mirror unto ourselves and think about, but it really behooves us to do that. It really does. The question that I want folks to ask themselves is, where are you thinking that you are better than others because you think a certain way? Where are you thinking you're better than others, or more enlightened than others, or more in the know than others, or more just than others because you think a certain way? And I'm going to give you a mantra, a hip hop mantra. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. I've given it to you before from Ice Cube. That's the little mantra. Like, how am I going to check myself? How am I going to make sure that I'm not being in that energetic vibration, which is a lower energetic vibration? And the second is, how do I have the responsibility to hold the high watch? What do I mean by that? I think of this image of those of you who are Game of Thrones fan, because I am, with Hodor, right? And if you don't know, don't worry about it. I'll give it to you. But he's holding the door, right? You finally get to this climax about who he is as a character, and you realize, oh, shoot, all along, this is what it meant. He's holding the door. Well, he was holding the door closed, but in unity, I want to suggest that we're going to hold the door open. We're holding the door open for people to come through who may need to be whole, who may inhabit behaviors that don't exhibit wholeness, that may have had histories of pain that allow them to then not be as open and as heartfelt and as connected to source and to each other. But we can't chastise people for doing that. We have to hold that sacred space. We have to hold the door open for people to come through. That is what Jesus was saying with the tax collector. We don't care if he's considered Satan incarnate. I have to hold the high watch. I have to hold the door open for this person to step through and inhabit wholeness, because each and every person is part of the kingdom of God. Nobody can be left behind. And so the question I'm going to ask everyone is, will you be a bearer of the light of love, or will you be a wielder of the scorching torch? And I'm going to say that again. Will you be a bearer of the light of love, or will you be a wielder of the scorching torch? And that just means, again, are you going to be open, or are we going to be in this space of judgment and condemnation? And the mantra I'm going to give you is hip hop again. It's nothing but a G thing, not a gangster thing. The G is for God. It is nothing but a God thing. If we believe that everything is God, everything in this world is God, then the people that we disagree with, then the political leaders who we see as against us are God as well. Woo! That got a little bit of, right? That made people's hair stand. But that is the truth. That is the truth. We have to distill today here down to the truth. So anytime we're in that space, it's nothing but a God thing. It really is nothing but a God thing. And just chill to the next episode. That's all we do. We just hang on. So being truly spiritual for us, as I conclude, it means for us to cultivate that inner peace that allows us to embrace life unconditionally and accept others for who they are without judgment. And it means for us to have a sense of compassion for all beings and understanding that we're all interconnected. We are all mirrors unto each other. We're all part of this web of life. No one is without. And so we have to hold a sacred space for those who are still struggling with their shadows, who are still struggling with not being whole, who are still struggling with thinking that they're better than someone, who are still struggling that they think that the world is for them to get over, and get over people. Again, these are things that we just have to hold a space for people to inhabit their God. Being spiritual is not enforcing truth. It's not flaunting truth. It's not using truth as a weapon. It's about being present and loving and aware. It's about being open and forgiving. It's about being the bearers of the light of love. You were born to change this world. So shine your light. Shine on. All right, we're going to take this into a time of meditation. So I'm going to invite everyone just to kind of close their eyes and just get into a relaxed space. Whatever you need to do to get in your little Zen zone. Shrug your shoulders, wiggle your fingers and toes, take some beautiful deep cleansing breaths, whatever you need to do to get into that space. And as we kind of go within, we remind ourselves that we are just inhabiting this space of love, inhabiting this space of power, inhabiting this space of being children of the divine, heirs and heiresses to this greater kingdom within. So we remind ourselves of that right here and right now. We open ourselves up to that sacred space in the now. And in this sacred space, we remind ourselves that we are mirrors unto each other. And in this time, maybe we ask ourselves those questions, taking a deep breath, connecting to Source, connecting to our higher power, connecting to that energy of wholeness and oneness and justice and purity and love. We ask ourselves honestly and truthfully, how can we be humble? How in my life can I be humble? Where in my life am I perhaps not inhabiting the space of humility, but instead inhabiting a space of spiritual arrogance, where I deny, where I fear, where I judge, where I criticize? Where in my life may I be doing that? And as you feel those spaces, as you see those spaces, as you just connect to those spaces that are having a bit of fracture, just send that healing light of God to them. Send that beauty of God. And we can ask to be forgiven, and we can ask for forgiveness, and we can forgive as well. And we can know that we are all doing the best that we can. We are all here in this iteration of life doing the best that we can, and we open our hearts to have compassion for those of us, including ourselves, who are not exhibiting the full potential of the Christ. And we pray for ourselves, and we pray for each other, and we affirm in this holy space that God is here right now, that God will be involved in everything forthcoming, that God will be involved in everything that happens after Election Day, and that we know and that we trust that we are here to change the world, and we have all the resources we need within us and around us and between us to be the light. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
Hey, thanks for watching this YouTube video. If Unity's message of positive spiritual living resonates with you, I hope you'll subscribe to our channel so you can stay up to date on other lessons as we post them. Also, if you're able to support us financially in the work that we do in the world, please check below for contact information. You can visit our website, find more about what programming we offer, as well as how to give. Blessings.